Welcome, all hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters, to the only fish and wildlife conservation podcast that goes behind the scenes of the business of conservation, the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Our podcast is hosted by John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute and Jim Cucaruto of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. John and Jim will talk with experts from all sectors of the conservation arena about their passion for conserving the great outdoors. So please welcome our hosts of the Connecting with Conservation podcast, John and Jim.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute, and I'd like to welcome you to the next episode of Connecting with Conservation. We have a special guest here with us today, Christian Hogg from Fiocchi, and of course, my co-host, Jim Cucaruto from Outdoor Stewards of Conservation. So, Jim?
All right. Thanks, John. And yeah, excited to be here with Christian. I've known Christian for a lot of years and been out in the field with him, tried to have some fun on the water every once in a while. But unfortunately, we're both too dang busy the last couple of years, so we haven't caught up much. So, Christian, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've been up to.
Well, thank you both for having me on. Again, I agree with you that, we do spend some time out in the woods and try to get on the water, but, some of us have to actually work every once in a while to get the bills paid. So, but we try to fit in as best we can. So yeah, my name's Christian Hogg. I handle all the marketing and new product development at Fiocchi of America, and we're also responsible for Boschieri and Pelagri USA, or B&P USA for short, because some folks have trouble pronouncing the Italian names based on our Italian heritage. I've been with Fiocchi since late 2020. I've been in the industry for just shy of 15 years, and then was doing some consulting work for the industry prior to my arrival, working for manufacturers. So, everything here at Fiocchi has been great. Just charging forward new products, trying to grow the business, and get the word out about Fiocchi and all the great products we got.
Yeah, I tell you, I was looking at your website, and obviously I follow Fiocchi, and us Italians, we got to say Fiocchi, when we say it. So I know there's confusion on that, but
I always give them the example, like everybody remembers gnocchi pasta, right? So I go, it's just like gnocchi, but it's Fiocchi. So it's not Fiocchi or Fiocchi or something like that. So, or Fiocchi. I get a lot of cheese. Fiocchi.
But yeah, you got a product line that covers everything, rimfire, centerfire, handgun, long gun, waterfowl. So tell us about, we can't go through them all, but kind of what's new and exciting, and what you guys are putting out recently.
A lot of our stuff, again, with my coming on board and looking at the line, was about looking where we had gaps or areas where we could improve in performance. So, again, what I call low-hanging fruit. So a lot of the stuff that we've been working on has primarily been in the shot shell arena of our product mix. I guess what we're primarily known for, however. But we've been making some improvements, working with some alternative materials, bismuth and tungsten. Again, looking at some waterfowl loads that we've been putting together and reintroducing. Obviously tungsten turkey loads, the density of that has been a great addition to the turkey hunting pursuit. And so we're happy to have that product line over the last couple of years. We introduced our first hollow point copper centerfire rifle projectiles called Knockdown. So we're looking at new caliber offerings, keeping our finger on the pulse of what people are looking for. We're playing around with, everybody the hot thing right seems to be duplex or stacked loads for waterfowl hunting and dove hunting. So we're, maybe exploring some, I can't tip my hand too much, but looking at some of those areas as well. And then obviously we make a lot of centerfire rifle and pistol ammunition for range use and stuff. So, we, in terms of areas of opportunity for us, are primarily in expanding our hunting portfolio in centerfire rifle. We just introduced a centerfire pistol handgun hunting line here mid-year, just at NRA annual meetings back in, I guess that was April, May, some time frame. So we brought those out. So, and then we've got some new things that I can't really talk about right now that will be, ready to go at SHOT Show. But if you're into personal defense from a long gun or a handgun standpoint, that we got some new exciting things coming down the pipe.
So, Christian, talk a little bit more about your tungsten turkey loads, because to me, that's been a game changer for turkey, and especially for young hunters or new hunters. Now I can remember, working for an agency when, we didn't talk about, 410s were not allowed at all for turkey hunting. And a lot of states, really wanted you to shoot 12 gauge shotguns. And now, most states allow 410s, and it's all been because of tungsten. So,
yeah, I mean, tungsten is really big. I mean, it's obviously very expensive when you go to the shelf, right? The offerings are out there. You're roughly at like $10 a round. When you were shooting lead, it was obviously a lot cheaper than that, and cost effective. But I think from a lethality, the ability to reach out a little bit further, better patterning, the density of the shot. Obviously, again, it's much more dense. It's 18 grams per cubic centimeter, and I think lead's at around 11. But again, it's an effective tool, for your toolbox. And then, like you mentioned, the ability that we do produce it in 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge, and 410. Almost all the line, we produce it, funny enough, in 9-shot. Everybody would think, shooting 9-shot at anything would be, maybe doves if you were, getting after it or something like that in lead. But because of the density, we were able to increase, pellet count, which then gives you a better pattern, a denser pattern with smaller shot with higher density. So it's been very effective. Again, using it out on my own personal or for work purposes, it's a one and done. If you got a good turkey lined up, I mean, even 40, 50 yards. Not that I advocate for shooting long distance at turkeys, but I always like to bring them in nice and close. So
oh yeah,
I don't have to walk too far. But
if one does happen to get away, you need a second shot, you can make a follow up shot at 50, 60 yards and take them down easy. The only drawback I've seen to it is especially with those number 9 pellets is, man, you can't always find them when you're cutting them up to cook them. So you bite into a tungsten pellet, and it's like, out.
you need to be careful with the tungsten. Yeah. Again, like I said, if you thought you were going to break a tooth like on lead shot, you're definitely breaking one with tungsten.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, it does break them down. I mean, I've dissected a lot of turkeys, and I started using it about 5 years ago, and it's like, man, there's no way they're getting away from that. It's a swarm of angry bees. So
exactly right. Right.
Yeah, I was, not a particularly great shot, so I like to try to have them close as well. But I was hunting with you a couple of years ago in Colorado, and you're only allowed, one tom a day. And of course, 2 toms came out neck and neck to the decoy, 20 yards away, and then they both walked away neck and neck. And right about 35 yards, they split up, heading away from me, and just using a Franchi and the Fiocchi, the TSS, picked it up, put it down, back of the head, talk about Italian stuff, right? And then, but not a flop, not a flop at all, right? I mean, it was dead. I was like, I'm not that good of a shot, so it really is the TSS. It's impressive stuff.
Yeah, it stops the flop, no doubt about it.
It does. I was going to say that. I was like, since I started shooting it, and my wife shoots it too, we've not had a bird make a move when it hit. It's dead instantly on the ground. And I always worried about that with lead. It's the birds that don't flop are the ones that are going to get up and fly away. I had to train myself now with tungsten. It's like, no, he's just dead. Yeah. He's not getting up.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into, the heart of waterfowl season, deer season and stuff. And, one of the big things that, we're talking about connecting with conservation. I know you guys are very conservation focused. And you've got a relatively new Enviro Shield, on a lot of your boxes. And tell us a little bit about that. What's going on with that?
Yeah, how that came about was, again, when I came on board with Fiocchi in 2020, being in an Italian-based company, right, with U.S. operations, what's going on in Europe in terms of, the types of ammunition and the types of projectiles that you can use. They're moving in a different direction. Obviously, they have sustainability goals and the things that they're looking for, and that are kind of European focused. And again, being a European-based company, there was a desire for us to how do we incorporate similar types of technologies into our products, and have the ability to tout and or talk about things that we're doing that are innovative and new as it relates to sustainable practices for target shooting and for hunting and stuff. So the EnviroShield initiative, as we call it, and you can typically identify it on a box. It's typically if we have a component that is incorporated into the finished good or the ammunition product, whether it be again, an alternative metal source, a biodegradable element to it, or again. A lot of folks don't know that Fiocchi, we're the only NATO-approved lead-free or heavy metal-free primer manufacturer in the world. So we do produce, primers that are, lead-free. And again, if there's our, pistol ammunition, like so you're shooting a 9mm inside an indoor range, right? Most of your exposure to lead is from the primer at the gun, in your face when you're shooting, and not necessarily the projectile down range and stuff. So again, as you look at the box, boxes we've identified, we've got a little logo that again says EnviroShield on it, so that that when you pick up that product, there is either one or multiple components within that product that fits within that initiative. Some of the other pieces that or have worked on, our sister company, B&P, has developed out a fully biodegradable wad for shot shell use. That's called Green Core. We've initially rolled it out under the B&P brand with again a product called Next, which is a target load for shooting sporting clays and whatnot. And then we've also got hunting lines and waterfowl lines that utilizes as well. It's a biodegradable, compostable product. Theoretically, you could put it in your mouth, chew it up, and swallow it, and be all right. I wouldn't recommend it. It does require a certain degree of moisture and bacteria that's naturally present in the ground or in mud and stuff like that to break it down. It does take a few years, similar to I guess I call it like a white flyer clay. If you're out shooting clays, most of them nowadays are biodegradable, and it does take a while for them to break down, but they do break down. The product is denser than water, so for Jim, I know you being a waterfowler as you are, again, I'm sure when you're shooting over your setup, again, a lot of waterfowlers are used to seeing white wad floating on the water, especially if you got a bigger group and you're shooting, the wind picks it up and might push in a different direction. We're always very good about normally picking up our hulls when we're out doing waterfowl hunting, but the wads tend to be a little bit more of a tricky situation. So with this Green Core being denser than water, like once it hits the water, it sinks to the bottom, gets down to the bottom of the mud and the muck and the bacteria down there in the bottom of a pond or river or lake, and we'll start its process of breaking down, and then you don't have to worry about it floating around. We've also incorporated into upland loads. We for pheasant hunting and especially where you have a mix of private and public ground, where ranchers have had there have been, complaints over the years of ranchers and cows ingesting, plastic wads left over from upland hunters and things like that. Again, cow is a different beast than a human being, but again, if it was consumed by a cow, it wouldn't be as much of an issue, being that it's a biodegradable. But again, I'm not the scientist who can tell you everything about bovine, or livestock interactions with the product, but we have pushed that in a good direction for that, and we do have plans of trying to incorporate the Green Core wad, not just with the B&P line of ammunition, but also start rolling that over into some of our Fiocchi, primarily waterfowl loads. But that's more of I think a 2025 initiative, late 2025. We'll probably start seeing that available on the shelves.
Cool. Yeah. So Christian, a lot of folks don't know this, but there aren't all that many large ammunition manufacturers, that serve our country. There's a lot of little small one-off custom shops and everything, but really there's a handful of large ammunition manufacturers and importers, and y'all are one of those. And you pay the excise tax that funds conservation. So, first of all, thank you for doing that. We don't say that enough. I've got prior experience with a state agency. Jim's worked for a nonprofit or for trade associations, and we've had that conversation for years about, there's a tremendous amount of conservation dollars flowing through these agencies that is the result of the manufacturers and the excise tax they pay on their products. And we want y'all, obviously every chance we get, we would show you that, here are the types of things that happen with your money. But tell us a little, some of your interest in conservation and kind of how that fits in with the Fiocchi model and the excise tax program.
Well, yeah, I mean, John, it's one of those deals where, again, I obviously have a personal vested interest in conservation and wanting to promote conservation. I think that, again, not to play on Jim's name, but to be outdoor stewards, while we're out in the field and setting a good example for others to see and for others who maybe not be in the arena of wanting to pursue like we do, again, going after game. And it's the same thing for fishing as well. Again, being respectful of where we're at and what we're doing. And, on our side on Fiocchi, we want to promote hunting and the viability of conservation associated with hunting and the benefits that are derived from there. And like you said, when they put Pittman Robertson together back in the day, right? Again, paying an 11% excise tax on all of the ammunition that we manufacture and release to the general public, right? It goes, right into those coffers and helps fund state agencies along with other components of that program. But, from our standpoint, again, getting youth and again, the 3 R's that we've been kind of, focusing on here for the last few years are obviously top of mind of trying to keep people engaged and, just getting out, and whether it just be recreational shooting, spending time out, with friends, family, again, and those are things, again, being a family run, business, the Fiocchi family starting it, it will be 150 years in 2026, but, it's a passion for everybody. So again, I think that's, one of the nicer things about being involved, in the industry is that when whether you're a firearms manufacturer or an ammunition manufacturer or, optics or anything else along those lines, is that the people that, work for these companies and participate, also take time and spend a lot of time out in the field. We use these products. This is a lifestyle for us. And we enjoy the idea that we can, do work the business, make a good living, support our families, and at the same time help promote conservation. I go, Teddy Roosevelt wasn't wrong all those years ago in terms of what we need to do. There were some issues with the overharvesting of animals, and over the time period of that, his initiatives going forward with all the other guys I'm not going to name, but that kind of helped drive that moving forward. I go, we're seeing the benefits of now. I mean, again, when you're talking about turkey hunting earlier, we got more turkeys than I think we know what to do with. I've never seen so many turkeys, no matter what state I go to. Again, we've seen rebounds of elk and pronghorn and deer, and there's still some work to do and with certain critters, but at the same time, I think we've the North American model of wildlife conservation works, and I think that's something we can all be proud of. And again, being able to, I could say from as a representative of the manufacturer that we're happy to pay those taxes because we know there's benefits for it.
Sure. And just an aside here, it was fortuitous I used to do this, but when I worked for a state, anytime I spoke to a legislative committee or, anybody in the General Assembly, anytime I had to make a presentation, I actually had a box of Fiocchi shells that I carried with me. And I would set it on the podium. And it was, like I said, we didn't prearrange this. That's what I happened to have in the office. And I would set it on the podium and I'd start the conversation off with, does anybody know what this is? Well, when you ask the question, most of the time, people who don't hunt or fish, they couldn't even tell you it's a box of shotgun shells, but some of them do. So they could say, oh, it's ammunition or shotgun shells. Some would know it's a 12 gauge. I say, no, this is $2.50 to conservation. every time you buy one of these, or it's $1.50 to conservation. And that's the way I tried to start educating them that you might not know about hunting and fishing and all that, but when you see one of these, when you see somebody buying one of these, they're helping pay for conservation because that manufacturer has paid that already. And that's the message we try to send. And hopefully we're doing a good job, but I still think people sort of think of, does it really make a difference? And
yeah, I think you make a good point again with that, representation, right? Like I feel, yes, it's 11% tax again on the ammunition that we release into the channel, as we call it, or into the retail stores to be purchased by the consumer, that we have to pay to the federal government every quarter. But it's not a straight 11% across the board, right? So it's based on the overall value of the product that we're sending out. So when you talk about like turkey TSS loads, right? We pay, that 11% is a lot higher than it would be if I sent it out like a 25 round box of, target shot shells for, having a good day, afternoon in the range or something like that. So, it's a variable rate again. And I think most manufacturers, recognize the benefit of what we're doing and how the program was set up. There might be times where we're like going, man, we could really use that 11%, but at the same time, it's just the reality of doing business. So.
Well, and it's investment in conservation. We do more of that. More people hunt and fish, target shoot, and they buy more shells. That's the one thing about. And Jim had me do a presentation several years ago. It's like you might buy a shotgun once every 5 or 6 years, unless you're like me and you buy one every year. But most people buy one every 5 or 6 years. But you shoot a lot of rounds of ammo through that shotgun if you're a regular shooter. So the accumulation of dollars spent on ammo usually dwarfs the cost of the firearm.
Yeah, I mean, and I would hope that again that folks that are whether they shoot a little or they shoot a lot, right? Like I'm sure they're utilizing the natural resources that those dollars help protect, and again that are not even related to say a shooting range or hunting opportunity. Again, maybe people like to go camping or go biking or hiking and things, and I think that there's a lot of consumers out there that don't realize that where the dollars came from to, set up that trailhead or manage the abundant wildlife that are non-game related that they're viewing or seeing where they're out recreating and stuff. So I think we can all take a little bit of pride in knowing that again, it's not just self-serving. It's public. I don't want to say public service on a certain aspect as well. So
sure. Well, for our listeners who don't know better, $1 billion a year comes to us for conservation, for manufacturers, for farms, ammunition, archery equipment, fishing and boating.
Yeah, and on top of that $1 billion, I mean, manufacturers also support nonprofit organizations, and I know and thank Fiocchi for being a sponsor of Outdoor Stewards, and you helped us lead that fill a bag while filling your tag program. Your customers get those biodegradable bags, take trash out of nature, all part of conservation when they're out hunting, fishing. You guys are helping us here, coming out with a new initiative about donate a deer. If there's an opportunity for an extra harvest, bring that to the butcher and donate that to the local food bank. All great messages that we're trying to promote out there because, there's more than just paying that excise tax. So other than, Outdoor Stewards, are there lesser nonprofits that Fiocchi's working with and helping out?
Well played. I'll say that, Jim. Well played. So I'm glad you brought that up because I go, yes, I mean, obviously we're, mandated by federal law to like pay our excise taxes on the ammunition going out the door. But I don't think a lot of folks realize again, that we do support other conservation-minded nonprofit organizations, right? Again, similar to Outdoor Stewards, right? Again, we do stuff with Delta Waterfowl, DU, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation. There's a long NWTF, right? I go, there's any critter-based organization that we have or we interact with, right? We do sponsorship agreements with them, or additional dollars that we fund towards those specific organizations that are also conservation minded and stuff. So it's almost like we're getting double dipped here every once in a while. Like, I don't know. But it's all for the good. It's all good. So we enjoy it. And again, it gives us opportunities also to, again, spend time with our partners out in the field, which again, I think helps strengthen those relationships. And again, I'm sure you've talked about with other folks on this podcast, is that this industry is all about relationships. And not just between the manufacturer and nonprofits, right? But state and local wildlife agencies. Again, being based in Missouri and having another plant in Arkansas, we deal with both state wildlife agencies there, and participate in doing, whether it be we were. Again, I think Jim, you were even there for the one in Missouri where they went out and did the bear den study with my coworker Holly and stuff. So again, there's opportunities, where we working a lot with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and stuff like that. So, that there's more dollars and more effort being put into, again, fish and wildlife and conservation efforts, from a business standpoint that may not seem business minded, but again, it contributes to the overall effect of, again, getting more people out in the field, bringing up that next generation to at least understand why the model was made in the first place and stuff like that. Let alone if we can encourage them to get out and participate, I go even better.
Right. It is a big, complex machine. That not only do hats, hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters need to a little bit be more educated on what's going on out there, but the general population, and that's one of the things Outdoor Stewards is focused on, is telling these great stories about nobody knows about how conservation is funded, and all the groups working together, from the state and federal DNRs to those critter groups that help support each other. I mean, and it really is the manufacturer and those participants that are paying the big, heavy load of how conservation is funded. And those are the stories that, we're focused on getting out there as well, because the general population needs to know about these things to help, improve the approval of hunting, fishing, trapping, and shooting, and all the other things that are going on out now politically. So, but John, I know, talks a little bit about those things at WMI, does a lot of work behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. We used to do the business summits, the outdoor industry business summits, until COVID shut those down. We put state directors and high level state people in manufacturing plants. Most of them had never been in a plant before, much less a firearms or ammunition manufacturing plant. They had no idea. And Christian, you mentioned earlier about the bears. It's probably the most overused but most successful thing we've ever done with manufacturers is take a bear cub out of a den, put it in an employee's hands, and say, this is what your money's paying for. Your excise tax are paying to make sure these things are on the ground and healthy, and in some cases huntable. So, but once again, thanks for all you do. And
I was just going to say, again, you made an interesting point there. Again, I think that, again, I don't want it to seem like, again, that manufacturers get some kind of special ability to go out and, like you said, handle a bear from a den or something like that. I would put it out there, again, having lived multiple states across the United States, that there are plenty of volunteering opportunities within, state fish and wildlife agencies that are always looking for people to help out. Again, one time I was living in Oregon for a time here, and we were doing a bear density study. And as a volunteer, they had a posting for it. I rode around with a Fish and Game guy, and we went around to baited sites so we could see where the bears were clawing, and we're collecting hair for genetic testing and stuff like that. And it just gives you an opportunity to see what you don't see on a regular basis as a layperson. So I would encourage somebody, again, or anybody that's interested in the outdoors or wildlife in general, just to look for those opportunities to volunteer and have those experiences as well, because they're very unique, and I think give you a better perspective on just the amount of work goes into wildlife conservation.
Yeah, definitely. Those DNRs are doing great work, but kind of to wrap things up here, how can we find out more about what Fiocchi is doing? Where can we find your products? That the Green Corps is exciting to me as a waterfowler and a conservationist. So what's the best way to keep track of what's going on at Fiocchi?
I would say, if you're interested, again, obviously at FiocchiUSA.com, you review our product line, Boschieri-Pelagri-USA.com. I'm sure if you Google B&P USA, the website will come right back up because we, worked out our SEO to work out great. So you can, review, read some more information about Green Core and the products that we've got associated with that. Again, follow us on social media. We're always posting stuff about new products, new opportunities on that front. In terms of finding products on the shelf, we have a lot of pretty wide distribution. We tend to do a lot of business with independent kind of mom and pop stores and stuff like that. So again, I always encourage people to find your local retailer that's there down the street or in your city. Again, we do some big box retail. Shields is a great example of a partner where you can find both Fiocchi and B&P products. So they're out there. We don't do any online sales because we want to support our retail partners. So, anything that you do see online is through a retail partner. So you can buy Fiocchi and B&P online if you want to deliver to the house, but it unfortunately won't be coming straight from the factory. It'll be coming from a retailer. So, but yeah. We're just we're looking forward to the start of 2025. It's actually the 140th anniversary for Boschieri and Pelagri come January 1, and then like I mentioned earlier, we're at the 150th anniversary in 2026. So back to back, it's a lot of marketing stuff that I got to work on and get figured out for the year and stuff. But we'll be doing a few little things here and there, celebratory wise for B&P through 2025, and we'll definitely be doing a lot more in 2026. So we encourage everybody to, again, if you're ever going to be at an outdoor show that are done throughout the year, again, we mentioned some of the organizations that put those on, and I'm sure the people that listen to your podcast know them as well. That we'll be there, and we'll be happy to chat with them then.
Outstanding. Well, Christian, thank you for being on. You're a great partner. You're a good friend. You do great work for conservation, and that just can't be overstated. Fiocchi is a huge contributor to conservation, and we appreciate it. We hope our listeners will continue to kind of go down this path of learning more about how conservation is funded and learn about the companies that are the backbone of conservation in our country. But thank you for being on.
You bet. Thank you guys for having me, man. John, Jim, it's always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you here. Funny enough, in about 8 weeks.
Not too far in the future. It's getting close.
Exactly right. Thanks again.
And to our listeners, thanks for listening. Subscribe to our podcast. Download our podcast. That always helps. I think you'll learn something. You'll certainly be entertained with a lot of our guests, as you have today. And we'll see you in the woods or on the water. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Please do us a favor and tell your buddies, friends, family, and others about what you've learned here today. If you like what you heard, come on back anytime and listen to another episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast.